We'll obviously have our regular press conference on Tuesday for game week, Wyoming recap. New Mexico State looking forward, obviously. So that's a big week, and we'll put all that focus on that tomorrow. Obviously, you all are here for one reason. These decisions are made, and every decision I make is based off of what I feel is the best direction for our program. When you have coaches, as a head coach, you have 10 families that are involved in those decisions, but the priority is the decision that's best for this football program in every decision I make. Derek did a great job his first 3 years for the work that he did for this program. I mean, his work ethic. In 2020, we were very successful on offense with multiple quarterbacks through injury. I mean, the first 2 games with Tavaka played very well. We averaged almost 500 yards a game and scored 50-some points in 2 games and gave us a chance to win when we weren't very good, especially on defense. The last 2 games with what we did in 2020, now Fresno had 20 guys out in that game. And I tried to warn people that there was some fool's gold involved in that, but our kids played hard. And Derek did some innovative things to give them a chance to be successful. The reason that Derek came back this following year after what we performed last year was solely based on personnel. I mean, Derek is a very smart football coach, does a great job in recruiting and evaluating. We were decimated with injury, weren't very good up front, and that was a process that when I took this job, understood trying to build those and get linemen and the way we develop in this program was going to be a very big challenge that year. And then when you're playing with, and this is no disrespect to Bryson Carroll, when you're playing the last 2 games with a manager that was trying to be a coach and had to come out of retirement, you've got to take that all into consideration in the evaluation, okay? I thought we've done a really good job of changing personnel on that side of the ball. We're not as talented as we need to be yet. I think the O-line has developed very significantly over the last 5 weeks. And I thought in the first quarter of the last 2 games, especially the first 2 drives, the offensive line has been really good. And the offensive line did not decimate from the remainder of the game. I thought they did a pretty good job. They were more physical than I thought in the second half on Saturday. But we didn't give them a chance schematically with what we were doing and did not have the answers that I felt we needed through the conversations during the game that gave us the best chance to be successful. And so I felt at this time it was the best for our program and the direction to make a change. Derek will be fine. He's a good football coach, and he'll find another job, and I'll help him any way I can. But for us to have a chance to be successful going down, I thought there was things that we could do better. And Heath has been a great addition to our staff. I've watched more Cleveland high school football in the last 2 weeks than I probably should, because it's not for evaluating purposes. And I think as an offensive coordinator, much like what we do on defense, you set things up, you set people up, and we need to do a better job of that. And he's been successful doing that. And so, I mean, there's not going to be a significant difference in. I mean, you can't add an entire offense differently than what we've been doing, and I don't think that's necessary. We've had a lot of if you watch, like I said, the first 2 drives, we've just got to have answers how to set those things up and continue to move on. When we fumbled the punt and held them to a field goal at 17-17, 17-14, we still had an opportunity with the 12-yard line to put the ball in the end zone and take the lead. And I mean, those games are going to be that way. The rest of these next 6 are going to have the ability to be the exact same way. And I felt we needed a change in that direction to give us a chance to win those next 6 games. And that's why the decision was made. And we're going to move forward. It was a long day of a lot of talking with the kids. I mean, there's some kids. I mean, obviously Derek recruited some of those kids, so there's some feelings involved. The offensive coaches did a great job yesterday. We met with all of them. Met with Derek, met with Heath. I mean, David and Eddie and President Stokes and everybody have been unbelievably supportive through this whole process. And it's why we have the chance for success, because of what they've started and how they handle. Now, the great thing is we're continuing to get better every week. We have enough talent. We need to give the kids a chance through coaching to have a chance to win these games. And that's why the decision was made, and that's where we're at. Who's got some questions?
Literally. From what you said, it sounded like it's more play calling and game planning. Is that?
I would agree with that. I think it's play calling and adjustments within the game to give our kids a chance. We're not out there so physically outmatched. Now I think there's some things that we can do to give our perimeter guys some better opportunities to be successful. We can use different parts of the field to be successful that we haven't done good enough. And so I don't believe that is the problem.
Coach, when you have a big change like this in the middle of the season, you said you spoke with your players. How do you guys keep their heads focused with your goals moving forward in the season?
I think that's a really good question. I mean, how do we, with a change like this, how do we keep the kids focused? As an evaluation process, and I mean, Coach Long was really, really good at this and why he's been successful as a head coach. You evaluate everything and every day. You evaluate personalities, you evaluate ups and downs, you evaluate both staff and players. And to keep the key focus, sometimes these changes need to be made. And so yesterday, they handled it very well. It was after we had the conversation of the changes that were going to be made, and then we moved on with some of our Sunday activities, and then we were able to meet. And we do this every week, offense and defense, because I think Sunday is a very important day for lifting and getting some of those soreness out through that way. One side of the ball meets, one side of the ball lifts, so I was able to address the offense after. So the whole team found out, and then I was able to address the offense, and then Heath was able to get up there and kind of tell them how things are going. Now, the direction of this program, the identity of this program, the design of how everything goes in this program is from me. And so there wasn't a major change in how we're doing things. But the voice that they hear after I say what I say is different now. I mean, Heath was in that room and did a great job yesterday. Kids were very attentive. Quarterbacks were great. And so making that change during this week is probably harder than most because of the game that we play this week. And I thought the kids did a good job yesterday. Now, we'll see tomorrow at practice, and today is their off day. We'll see tomorrow at practice and Wednesday at practice what major effects it's had. But I anticipate it being for the positive and moving forward, because that's the resiliency of our program. And I think you can attest to a lot of that. I mean, the kids that we talked about that got hurt on Friday after the game, Alec Marenko tearing his ACL, Tavian Combs tearing his ACL. Those kids are built, and the toughness and the mindset. I mean, those kids both got off the field. Nobody even knew they were hurt. They go into the tent and take care of it, and our fans don't know until after the game, until I say something. That's all a testimony to how they do things, so they're resilient. So I think they're going to show up to work tomorrow, ready to go. But, I mean, I have a pretty good pulse on all of them. I hang out with all the position groups, so I'll be able to tell if there's something that needs to be addressed.
You talked about Coach Ridenour, and I mean, what has really impressed you about him, and obviously being confident to make this position move, but also how much of an influence has he had just on the quarterbacks, and how are the players really responding to him?
I think Heath has done a really good job, obviously being a head coach for 13 years and having the opportunity to be able to value himself with all the kids on the team. That experience has helped him a ton in building relationships with the kids on our football team. I mean, our coaches do a pretty good job of knowing who each other are on both sides of the ball. And I've been around coaches that knew their position group. They knew the other guys on their side of the ball and couldn't hardly tell you a name of a kid on the other side. And that's not how we do things around here. And so there was no shock or dismay yesterday when I said who was going to be in charge of that side. And I think that's a testament to him and the relationships that he's built. Now that we have a bunch of New Mexico kids that are familiar with him and maybe did not like him, because when you get your tail whipped by somebody, you have that disdain, but then you figure out who they are as a person, and it's completely different. I mean, we have a bunch of Rio Rancho kids on this team that could not stand Heath Ridenour, as they shouldn't, and they don't feel that way. So I think you have to give him credit for building relationships in that time.
Danny, obviously you had input in the offensive game plan during the week. How much input have you been able to have in play call during it?
My true feeling in that, Rick, is when you hire somebody to do a job, you expect them to do it and do it well. Now, as the head ball coach, watch both sides of the ball, and I'm very involved, especially when we're on offense, more so of what they're doing on defense that can give our guys a chance and what we can set up and what I see happening. And if those things aren't adjusted to, then we have a lot bigger discussions. And so my biggest input is helping them out from a defensive perspective on what's available, what we've done all week long that can expose some of those things. But as a play caller, and this is a defensive guy too, I mean, when I was with Herm, and Herm's a defensive guy, you can't get involved in trying to dictate what they do, because really, really good play callers have to get into a rhythm. They have to set things up and do those things. And if you got too many guys shouting ideas in their ear, you can really screw up especially a good one. So giving them advantages on what I see available is the biggest asset that I have for them, but I like them to do their job.
Go ahead, Sam.
Coach, even outside of game day, you've talked about, wanting to see at times, the coaching staff be more aggressive at times, or just, taking advantage of certain. Was there anything that you guys had talked about that just wasn't playing out on game day? Anything you guys had talked about Sunday through Friday that wasn't playing out on Saturdays?
Without specific details, yes.
Okay.
And so that's why we're at where we're at.
What's going to go most noticed to a Lobo fan? Like, what are they going to recognize first on the offensive side?
Well, I mean, I think you have to Coach Lynn's done a really good job with the offensive line. I mean, getting those guys to gel. And if you watch the first drive on Saturday, that was a very physical. I mean, Wyoming's a good football team up front on defense. And I thought our guys did a really good job of giving opportunities for the running backs, for the quarterbacks, to gain positive yards. I mean, not very often when we get behind the chains. I mean, we had the false start where their guy jumped into the neutral zone, and I thought Tavian Ford did a nice job reacting as we watched it on tape, but they called it against us, and we got backed up to 1st and 15. We don't usually get out of that situation. We're not very good at getting behind the chains and being successful. Guys didn't let it affect them. And we end up getting a nice corner out by Andrew Erickson, and Miles delivers a nice ball, and now we're 1st and 10 on the 12-yard line, and then we were able to put the ball in the end zone. So I think those guys have given opportunities. We need to build on that stuff. And I think that's what the expectation is after we have 2 successful drives, we can't stall. 1, we can't get complacent. 2, we have to continue to be aggressive. I mean, that's the nature of this program. Be aggressive in everything you do. And I don't think we had that same temperament in the second half of the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, third down percentage hasn't been good. Is that part of it? How big a part of the problem is that?
It's a significant part of the problem. I think some of I still believe we need to throw the ball deep 8 to 10 to 12 times a game. Those need to be better calculated. We do it. We're not a very good team behind the chains and second and long. I mean, as much as you talk about right there, third down, which I think third down is the most important down, and we've been really good on third down on defense this year. We've been equally as horrid on offense because of our second down being behind the chains and not setting up manageable third downs. Third and 1 to 3rd and 3 is a huge advantage for the offense. 3rd and 5 and longer is a pretty big advantage for the defense. And the majority of our third downs, especially in the second half since the main game, have all been 3rd and long situations, which we're not very successful in. We've converted 1. And so that doesn't give you a chance to be successful and get the ball in the end zone when you can't continue to move the chains on third down. So absolutely.
So I know that with this being game week for New Mexico State, I know you said that makes it tough on the players. I mean, just with this being a big game, but did that kind of help, prompt this decision as well, going into New Mexico State?
I took that out of the equation because if I left that in the equation, I might not have. It's a big deal. It's a rivalry game, and you know how I feel. Coach Kill's done a great job in a short time with that program. They play really, really hard. They had a UTEP team that we beat that then destroyed Boise the next week. They have the ball down in the red zone as time's running out to tie it up and send it into overtime. So he's got those kids playing at a high level and believing in what they're doing. So that's why, I felt it was the right time for the direction of our program to do this. And that was yesterday, and we move on and get prepared to win a game on Saturday.
Coach, you talked about hiring people to do a job, but for this week in particular, are you going to be more involved in the offense just in this transition week?
I'll be very, in meeting-wise, absolutely was yesterday. Last night was a long night because I still do my defensive stuff, and that's the funnest part of this job is the schematics, the chess game, and being around the kids. So I was definitely involved in all that stuff yesterday for the organization aspect of it. I won't get involved in play calling. I'll give them the same. The advantage that they have that I've seen that works really well is when we get into a third down situation, communicating right now. Okay, you got 2 downs. There's a really good chance we're going this on 4th down unless we're not positive right here, and that dynamically opens up your playbook. You've got to be able to give them opportunities to be successful in those situations and not do this. If you're going to just do the same things over and over and beat your head on a door, that doesn't do anybody any good. So, that aspect of it won't change. What I see defensively won't change. I'll give them all that input, and then, I have my moments of suggestions, but I don't tell them what plays to call.
Is there anything different at halftime you want to do differently?
Yeah, play better. Obviously, schematic adjustments that have been made by the other teams have not been significant. So what they've done a lot better, especially on defense, is seeing what we're doing in the first half. And this is where a great play caller can set things up. We got outside routes going down there, so the corners are starting to sit on things. We got opportunities to double move, post, different stuff that I didn't think we were doing a good enough job of. And that's what we're giving them the advantage because they're getting aggressive and more aggressive. Both those pick sixes the last 2 weeks were because those corners didn't even get out of their pedal because they weren't threatened by something. And when you can do that and be aggressive and sit down and do those things, you can play a lot better defense. So those are the kind of adjustments that we need to make to give our kids a chance and not let them get comfortable with what they're doing.
Anything else?
Yeah, obviously you said it was a play calling deal, and you got to feel pretty confident with Heath. It seemed like in his last year at Cleveland, kind of had similar athletes, like a similar style. Just talk about his philosophy and how much are you pretty congruent with him on that?
No, very. You got to remember Heath was just inducted into the Eastern New Mexico Hall of Fame. Heath was a triple option quarterback in college, and has a lot of experience with that. So a lot of the same schematics and ideas he's very, very familiar with, so he's not indoctrinating himself into something that he hasn't done, obviously. We do a lot of the similar things conceptual-wise that they did at Cleveland and were very successful, so that's us very comfortable. And then giving, Coach Christian, who's been doing this for 30 years, is both a running backs coach and a special teams coordinator, and Linz and Coach Blackman, all those guys having input and being all together on the same page. I thought they did a great job yesterday. That's all going to be huge and helpful on game day and giving our kids the best chance to be successful.